The screen that you see before you should look very familiar, as you see the screen every time you pop a DVD into your DVD player. At our house, we generally try to fast forward, but in many instances, your DVD has been specially programmed to keep you from doing this, so that you must view the warning flashing up on the screen. What does this screen really mean, and what implication does this screen have on us as educators? Well, I'm pretty sure that we all have enough sense to understand that copyright infringement means that we can't stand out on bus duty at 8:30 a.m. and distribute copies of the Harry Potter movies to our students, and even more so, to sell them to our students. But did you know that this notice also means that it is unlawful for us to show the Harry Potter movies in our classes without having a strong curricular excuse? Take a look at this quotation taken directly from the first FBI warning shown. Severe civil and criminal penalties for the unauthorized reproduction, distribution, or exhibition of copyrighted motion picture videotapes or video discs. Here's another. Any copying or public performance of such motion picture is strictly prohibited and may subject the offender to civil liability and severe criminal penalties. FBI warnings state clearly that performance and display of the work in question is considered an infringement on copyright law and severely punishable. So can you show a movie with this FBI warning? According to the Fair Use Harbor website put together by St. Francis University, the answer to that is yes, under the following circumstances. The copy shown must be a legal copy. The movie must be one that ties in directly with the core objective. So let's take a look now at the goal for this presentation. Copyright law, according to attorney Stephen Fishman, is a legal device that provides the creator of a work of art or literature, or a work that conveys information or ideas, the right to control how the work is used. Fishman says that these rights include the right to control how the work is reproduced and distributed, and the right to create adaptations based upon the original work. It also includes the rights to control the performance and display of the work. The law of copyright was written into the Constitution and has morphed over the years due to continued strides in science and technology. So through just the simple definition of what copyright law is, educators can already see how copyright law may affect you at every turn. Big deal, some say. Who cares? This is a very good question. Who cares? I mean, after all, it's not as if the copyright police are standing outside of your classroom peering through your window, right? Well, that is true. However, there are people who care about what we as educators do in regards to copyright law. For one, copyright owners care. When we infringe upon their rights to make money from their hard work and knowledge, they care. And if they come across knowledge that points to us as infringers, you can bet they'll take action. If or when this does happen, school boards will care. If the school district is faced with a copyright infringement lawsuit, this makes the school district and the teachers look bad. Public schools get enough negative coverage without adding copyright lawsuits on top of everything. Why? Because parents and taxpayers care. Most importantly, teachers are role models for their students. Showing students that we want to give credit where credit is due and ask permission when permission should be requested is the ethical thing to do. Not sure you get it yet? Is this really as big a deal as I'm making it out to be? Don't feel alone. Many educators pay little attention to copyright law, oftentimes on the simple fact that they are not educated on the matter. The Copyright Act itself is over 300 pages long, and additions have been made since its enactment. Let me give you a quick example of how easy it is to commit copyright infringement as an educator. Team X conducted a quarterly incentive program for its students. At the end of each quarter, students who had received no discipline referrals for the quarter were given a half-day incentive movie with popcorn and soda. The movie choices for the students were Shark Tale, Fox and the Hound, and Mr. Megorium's Wonder Emporium. According to the FBI warning shown at the beginning of this presentation, Team X has just committed copyright infringement the moment they turn on the movie of choice. As stated earlier, if a lawsuit were ever filed, and there have been cases where this has happened, the school would be liable for the copyright infringement. Websites designed specifically for anonymous reporting of copyright infringement and illegal performance and display are popping up all over the internet. Many companies are offering monetary rewards to those reporters that turn up a true case of infringement. The Business Software Alliance is one such company that allows anonymous reporting of copyright infringement for computer software. Thankfully, educators do catch a bit of a break because they are educators. However, Many are under the impression that educators are exempt from copyright law altogether. Not the case at all. Enter the fair use doctrine. Although fair use was practiced in common law, it was written into the Copyright Act of 1976. Fair use limits the rights of copyright holders to allow others to use their works to create new works, such as critical works, news reports, teaching, or research. The guidelines leave a lot to individual interpretation and are as follows. What is the purpose and character of the new work? Is it commercial or nonprofit, such as education? The purpose could be either commenting or on critiquing a work, such as a teacher or literary critic might do, or creating a parody, which is a work designed to mock another work. The second factor to consider in fair use is the nature of the work. Specifically, is the work being used a work of fiction or nonfiction? Historically speaking, leniency is more often given to those who use works of nonfiction due to the factual nature of the work. It is more difficult to prove copying when facts are in question. Facts themselves are not protected under copyright law. The third use for fair use is the amount of work used in relationship to the rest of the work. A general rule of thumb would be less is always better, but even this rule can get you into trouble. If a judge finds that you have stolen the heart of a piece, even if that is the only part of a piece you've copied, you could face a copyright infringement lawsuit. The only time a judge would be lenient in the amount of the work taken is in the case of a parody, where a majority of the work is expected to be taken. However, be sure to consider the definition of a parody before thinking you're safe. Dr. Seuss Enterprises sued Penguin Books after a book mimicking The Cat in the Hat was published about the O.J. Simpson trial. The argument was that the book was a parody, but the judge's decision was that the book made fun of something, but it wasn't the book The Cat in the Hat, and therefore it was not considered a parody. Hence, the author, Dr. Juice, had no right to take so much from the Dr. Seuss book. Finally, the last factor in consideration for fair use is the effect that the new work will have on the potential market of the old work. Money is the key here. If the new work promotes the old work, there is less likelihood that the new one would be considered anything but fair use. However, if the market for the old work goes down and people begin buying the new one in place of it, the chance of an infringement suit is far greater. Did I say finally for the last one? I did, didn't I? Well, unofficially there is a fifth factor, and that is the skill and/or good taste factor. Think back to the late 1980s when Cabbage Patch Kids came out. Topps, a trading card company, was sued for copyright infringement and lost, more than likely due to the distasteful creation. So what about the copies of Edgar Allan Poe's Telltale Heart that can be copied and printed off the internet? Well, works in the United States aren't protected forever. Anything published before 1923 is now part of what we call our public domain. Public domain is where works lie now that can be copied and used without permission. In the United States, works that were published between 1923 and 1963 may also be part of the public domain if their copyright was not officially renewed through the Copyright Office. To be sure you are not illegally copying a work, check the copyright on the work before making copies of it. There are ways to check this. Places like Books in Print, Literary Marketplace, International Literary Marketplace, Writers Market, the National Directory of Magazines, the Standard Periodical Directory, Ulrich's International Periodicals Directory, the Directory of Small Press and Magazine Editors and Publishers, or the Association of American University Presses Directory may be able to help you find the publisher of whatever publication for which you are seeking permissions. You may also be allowed to copy out of print works if you have exhausted all means to get permission from the copyright holder. Okay, so now that we get the idea that we can't just go about copying whatever we please in the name of education, what about creating presentations and using parts of other works to be displayed or performed in our classrooms? Are there rules for that too? Absolutely. Copyright law states that you may use 10% or 3 minutes, whichever is less, of any motion media worked for use in the classroom. This means that if you were planning to put together a multimedia presentation on classical period composers for your music class, you could copy and import 3 minutes or 10% of the movie, whichever is shorter, Amadeus, into your multimedia presentation without infringing upon the rights of the copyright owners. For text material, up to 10% or 1,000 words, whichever is less, can be copied and used. Using poetry makes things a little trickier. an entire poem of less than 250 words may be used, but no more than 3 poems by any one author can be copied. If you were copying poetry from an anthology or a group of works by more than one author, then 5 poems could be copied by different poets. Longer poems allow only 250 words, and no more than 3 excerpts by any one poet can be copied. And if copying from an anthology, only 5 excerpts of 250 words each by different poets could be used. Are you following me? For musical works, up to 10%, but no more than 30 seconds can be copied and used. Pictures and illustrations are another tricky rule. No more than 5 images by an artist or photographer, or, if using a collective work, no more than 10% or 15 images can be used without permission. If looking to use numerical data sets, such as a spreadsheet, 10% or 2,500 cells can be copied, whichever is less from one work. In all instances, fair use only applies to new works created for non-commercial reproduction or distribution. Feeling frustrated? As an educator, I understand the necessity of having the ability to photocopy a great article from a magazine or online that pertains to the discussion of the day. And so did our lawmakers. Because of this understanding, guidelines have been put in place to give educators some more freedoms. In the area of research, 1 copy of a chapter, article, short story, essay, or poem may be made. This is what makes copy machines in libraries legal. Also, 1 copy of a chart, graph, diagram, drawing, cartoon, or picture can also be made in the name of research. Making multiple copies of a work is acceptable for the classroom, as long as no more than 1 copy per student is made of a poem that is 250 words or less and on 2 pages or less, 250 words from a lengthier poem, 2,500 words of an article, short story, or essay, excerpts of 1,000 words or 10%, whichever is less from an article, story, or essay, 1 chart, graph, diagram, drawing, cartoon, or picture, or 10% of any picture book. In addition, copying must be spur of the moment, as planning to copy something in advance would allow time to request permission from the copyright holder. It also must be for only 1 course in the school, not more than 1 short poem, article, story, or essay, or 2 excerpts from longer works should be copied from the same author, and no more than 3 from the same anthology. Also keep in mind that no more than 9 instances of multiple copying can be done for 1 course in a single term. Finally, to cover yourself, don't forget to include notice of copyright on the copies in exactly the same format as the original notice. That's a lot of guidelines to remember. Well, guess what? It doesn't stop there. Did you know that librarians' fair use rights continue even after that? Librarians can make up to 3 copies, physical or digital, of an entire work as long as the copies contain the same copyright notice that the work has, and the library does not make money from the copying of the works. This does not include charging for paper. Unpublished works can be copied for security and preservation, only to be kept in the library for internal use. Up to 3 copies of a work can be made if it is lost, stolen, damaged, or has become obsolete. Patrons who request a copy of an article or short story should be allowed a copy as long as the librarian is assured that the patron will not use the copy for profit and the copyright notice on the copy matches the original. Finally, if an entire work cannot be obtained at a reasonable price, a single copy of the entire work can be made for a patron. Librarians' fair use privileges stop here, however, and multiple copies are not allowed at a library. So what if the library patron who infringes on copyright law and makes multiple copies of a poem to distribute or sell? Is the library accountable for this? As long as a warning notice is posted in a place where patrons will see it before they attempt to make the copies, the library is not liable. So now that we've learned so much about protecting everybody else's work, what about my work? As a teacher, are my creations protected, or can anybody steal them and use them? To answer your question, your work just needs to be published. This could be as simple as copying and distributing your work or uploading it to a website. The sticky part is whether you have a right to your own work. Our current contract shows no stand on the matter. There has been some debate over whether the worksheets, tests, and other works that you create as a teacher are owned by you or by the district. Some institutions have a provision in their contract regarding this. So you be the judge. If you create something that you think could be profitable, spend the $45 and register it with the Copyright Office. Doing this will protect you and allow you to sue if somebody tries to use your work for their profit. If you just do not want others to copy your work or use it, then mark it with a copyright notice, the C with the circle around it, the date, and your name. This is your warning label to others that you would like your work to remain your work. So there you have it, Copyright Law for Educators 101. Everything you need to know as a teacher, and then some. To recap, displaying or performing a copyrighted work requires permission from the copyright holder unless the work is directly aligned with the curriculum and guidelines are properly followed. Your best bet is to request permission from the copyright holder to use anything. But, if you can't, be sure to stick to the guidelines of fair use. Finally, if you feel like your own creative works may bring you a future of prosperity, by all means, register it.